This is Haki. Thanks to One Piece, the word Haki has become known all over the world. But do you actually know what it originally means? Haki in Japanese refers to the drive to take on challenges, ambition, or strong will to achieve something. When someone is full of energy and actively chasing a goal, people say, あいつ覇気があるな. That person has haki. On the other hand, if someone is just drafting through the life without any direction, you might hear, あいつ覇気がないな. That person has no haki. So are you someone with haki? Now in One Piece, the nuance shifts a bit. Put simply, haki is the power of will that exists within every person in the One Piece world. Especially Conqueror's haki, in manga and anime, it's shown with lightning-like effects, which might make it seem like a physical attack. But in truth, it's not physical. At its core, it's pure willpower. That's why the real key to Conqueror's haki is this. How strongly can you intimidate your opponent? Or more precisely, how deeply can you instill fear into them? That's the heart of it. Right now, Imu might seem unstoppable, using devil power to turn the giants to their side, but even Imu was shaken when confronted with Joy Boy's haki. They screamed in terror and trembled. This tells us that Conqueror's haki is all about strength of one's spirit, or one's heart. With that in mind, I'm going to deep dive into how Luffy might use this power going forward in battles against Imu. Anyway, on this channel, LunaPienArt, I break down One Piece from the perspective of someone reading the original Japanese version, including the old wordplay, cultural references, and nuance that even 21st century translation software can't fully capture. For chapter breakdowns, stick with this channel. For deeper theories, head to Dawn Dusk channels. And for those of you who want most in-depth content, there's always my Patreon. Alright then, let's talk haki. I believe Elbaf is also an arc dedicated to exploring Conqueror's haki. In the latest chapter of One Piece, Gaban mentioned that using Conqueror's haki properly can counter the regeneration abilities of the God's Knights. But actually back in the fight against Kaido, Luffy himself said, 覇王色もまとえるんだろ? So we can quote ourselves in Conqueror's haki to her. And in the colored version, we can clearly see him attacking with it. However, in the Egghead, even though Luffy did manage to beat Saturn to pull and blow him away, Saturn began regenerating in the very next scene. That suggests Luffy didn't land the proper attack caught in Conqueror's haki. If you look closely at the panels, the scene where Luffy punches Saturn or Topman don't show the lightning-like Conqueror's haki effect at all. In contrast, when Gaban slashes Somers, those signature lightning effects are clearly visible. So it seems that when you properly caught your attack in Conqueror's haki, it can stop the opponent regeneration. Let's take a moment to break down the Japanese expression Gaban used in that scene. He said, 覇王色の使い方を肝に銘じろ。あいつらは決して不死身じゃない。Engrave this into your gut. How to use Conqueror's haki. Those guys aren't truly immortal. The phrase he uses, 肝に銘じる, literally means engrave it into your liver, but in Japanese, it carries a deeper meaning. It means to deeply imprint something important onto your mind, especially advice or lesson. So you never forget it and apply it to your future actions. Here, 肝 doesn't just mean the organ. It also symbolizes the core of your spirit or inner will. And this one, 銘じる, means to engrave something like carving into metal or stone. So the full phrase suggests searing something into your heart with serious weight. In the past, Rayleigh explained Conqueror's haki like this. Conqueror's haki is the only one you can control, but you can't train it. It's pure force of spirit. It only grows as the person grows. So when Gaban says, engrave it into your gut, he might not just be saying, use Haki properly. He could be telling us that mastering it requires deep mental focus and control, a higher level technique that depends on the inner strength. Interestingly, another chapter in One Piece also used this exact phrase, Kimo ni meijiru. Do you remember who did use this phrase, Kimo ni meijiru? Shiryu. At Impel Down, where Shiryu once worked, there were girls dressed in devil-like costumes, and we've seen demon-like figures with a similar silhouette threatening Elbaf now, like the Oni no Sodebiki. It's possible that Impel Down still carries something lingering influence from Im's demonic power. And maybe Shiryu already knew that mental strength was key to resisting it. That might explain why he used that same phrase, Kimo ni meijiru. I actually talked more about the connection between Impel Down and these devil figures in another video on Dawn Dusk channel, so if you're curious, go check it out. In the world One Piece, the concept of spirit and will seems to play a hugely important role. Take Big Mom's Soul Fruit, for example. In her case, the moment someone feels fear, their soul can be separated from their body. That means that keeping a soul tethered to the body is unshakable will, like Jinbe did. According to Rayleigh, Conqueror's Haki is literally an expression of user's fighting spirit. So the true nature of Conqueror's Haki is probably this: to overwhelm your opponent with sheer presence, with raw intensity, and strike fear directly into their soul. If members of God's Knights were to feel even flicker of fear in the face of someone's Conqueror's Haki, it could disturb their focus and momentarily suppress the power of the devil within them. The same principle might apply to Armament Haki and how it can hit Logia users. It's not like your arm and your leg literally turning into iron. Logia parts are deeply connected to the user's spirit and soul. They can control their elemental bodies because of the bond between their will and their devil fruit power. So when someone cloaks themselves in Haki, in spirit, that force gets transmitted to the Logia user. And in that instant, if their soul registers subconscious fear, their ability momentarily fails, because the spiritual armor disrupts their power. In other words, it's not just about physical strength, it's a battle of wills. Actually, in Elbaf, this theme keeps coming up over and over again. It's even been used as titles twice in the Elbaf arc. First, in Watashi no kowai mono, what I'm afraid of, and later, Wareware no kowai mono, what we're afraid of. Both titles mean the same thing, but there's a key difference. Chapter 1142 uses all hiragana and sounds like a child speaking, while Chapter 1147 uses more formal adult language. In Chapter 1142, we see flashback of a lesson from teacher Anje, where she asked the children of Elbaf to draw what they are afraid of. Those drawings were used to create the Muma monsters, brings born from imagined fear. And at the end of the chapter, Summers asks Kunko what she's afraid of. Her answer is Nika. Then in chapter 1147, a giant child named Bento imagined his own mother as a source of fear, and that exact image turns into a Muma. Even the giant warriors pirates were terrified by it. Mother's Muma. So what we've been seeing is this idea that everyone has something they are afraid of, and when they face it, they are powerless. Even Summers, right before Gaban landed a hit on him, clearly lost his composure. It's likely that Gaban's overwhelming Conqueror's Haki made him feel fear, and the fear was enough to throw him off. I think this idea of instilling fear might be the true essence of Conqueror's Haki. And we've actually seen similar moments elsewhere in the story. It's not exactly the same kind of fear, but something similar happened during the Luffy's fight with Katakuri. When Katakuri was seen eating, something he absolutely didn't want Luffy to witness, he lost his focus. His perfectly honed haki stopped working here. It wasn't fear, exactly, but the mental disturbance of being in a vulnerable state disrupted his haki. Another powerful example is Zoro's fight with Monet. Zoro didn't even physically cut her, he simply overwhelmed her with fear. She was so paralyzed by it that she couldn't move. Tashigi witnessed it and said, "Her body won't move, she is frozen by fear," in the presence of someone overwhelmingly stronger. Once again, the keyword that stands out is fear. Thanks to Japan, it's now confirmed that Zoro does possesses Conqueror's haki. And it turns out Luffy already knew. We've seen hints of before, like the black lightning coming off Zoro in the key moments, or enemies passing out from sheer intimidation. Kaido even commented on it, noticing that Zoro carries the trait of someone who with Conqueror's haki, so the signs were always there. Considering how Zoro trained to read the breath of the all things and practice deep mental focus, it makes sense that this power, which he always had within him, eventually awakened. Now, what about Sanji? Sanji actually asked the Kaban if he might have Conqueror's haki too, and personally, I think he does have the potential. After all, he is of royal family blood, but I feel like it take him much longer to fully unlock it. The reason is the Sanji's defining trait. The thing that's been emphasized again and again is his kindness. As Judge once pointed out, Sanji is the complete opposite of King. He is soft on others, compassionate to fault. Even during Whole Cake Island, that kindness kept him from abandoning his family, no matter how badly they treated him. And as we've discussed here, Conqueror's haki is all about overwhelming your opponent with pressure, even fear. That makes it arguably hardest form of haki for someone like Sanji to master, because Sanji is too soft. But this is where Oda Sensei's deeper setup starts to come into play. We've seen that when Sanji gets truly angry, especially when the woman is hurt, his eyebrow curls reverse, matching his Germa's brothers. Oda Sensei explained this in the volume 105 SBS. That's when science in him activates and manifests as strength. So maybe that scientific power, fueled by Sanji's anger, could amplify to a point where it instills fear in his enemies and evolves into Conqueror's haki. After that, Sanji seems to have had some kind of private exchange with Gaban. He didn't react the way he usually does, no yelling, no frustration. Which suggests Gaban might have said something about Sanji's potential, or his unique nature. Given that Sanji still, technically, royalty, there's a good chance he has some latent quality Gaban picked up on. One more line from Gaban's comment about Haki really stood out to me. Haki は認識してコントロールできてこその力だ。Haki is only useful if you recognize it and learn it to control it. That's hit especially hard when you think about Zoro. Up until now, he didn't even realize he had Conqueror's Haki. There's even scene where Luffy says to him, Haki がダダ漏れてんぞ. Your Haki is leaking out all over the place. In Japanese, the term ダダ漏れ, which means something is spilling or leaking endlessly and wastefully. Like if water's pouring out of pipe because it hasn't been fixed, that's dadamore. Zoro had that power, but since he wasn't aware of it, he wasn't using it. It just kept leaking out totally unused. What's a waste? It goes to show, even if someone has natural talent, it doesn't mean much unless they understand the essence of that power. That idea actually shows up in other manga too. In Bleach, for example, a character can fully unleash their Zanpakuto's power until they learn its name, like its true identity. Then there's Loki, who responds to Gaban's comment with an interesting remark. 自分の力を言語化できていなかった。I couldn't put my power into words. It's not totally clear whether he's talking about controlling Conqueror's Haki or some kind of developed ability, but either way, there's no doubt that he holds a power strong enough to go toe-to-toe with the Ghost Knights. Oh, about that bit where Sanji says he's been losing stock, 株が下がり続け lately, that phrase in Japanese kind of means his popularity or reputation has been slipping. But explaining that would totally derail the conversation, so I'll save the breakdown for an article on my Patreon. Every week I prepare a deep breakdown of the newest chapter on my Patreon. If you're interested, check it out. Now let's talk a bit about Zoro versus Sanji. A debate that's been going all over the world, and of course Japan is no exception. People love to argue about which one is stronger between Zoro and Sanji. To be totally honest, if we're just talking current strength, Zoro probably has the edge right now. But if we're talking about potential, I'd say they're pretty evenly matched. The thing is, Zoro spent nearly all his time training, both physically and mentally, because his goal is to become the world's strongest swordman. Sanji, on the other hand, spends a lot of time cooking. Fighting isn't the only thing on his mind. That difference in how they spend their days probably explains the slight gap in their bounties and win records. But if they trained under the same condition or fought the same opponents, I honestly think they'd be neck and neck. And let's not forget, their fighting styles are totally different. Depending on the enemy, one might have the advantage over the other. They each have their own strengths and weaknesses. I actually talk more about this in the upcoming Dawn Dusk video, but here's something I want to stress. Trying to reduce everything to black and white, either or arguments honestly kind of foolish. But at the same time, those binary debates also where things get the most heated, and honestly the most fun to watch. Just like how some readers see Zoro and Sanji's bickering and go, man, wait, idiots. There are definitely people watching fans argue about who's stronger, thinking the same thing. That kind of dumb argument is exactly the kind of thing that draw people in. Twitter is the perfect example of this. It's basically chaos incarnate. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of that kind of place, but once you jump in, it's easy to get sucked in the line, a black hole. That's actually one reason I like YouTube better. The viewers will tend to be more chill, more thoughtful, they can handle nuance. And I guess in saying that, I just created another binary, X versus Twitter. So yeah, even that proves the point. And there's one more thing I want to bring up. In chapter 1152, Luffy once again casually invited someone to join his crew. Personally, I like how Luffy invited the three on the thriller bark, but this time it was Loki. Now remember how in the Wano Kuni arc, everyone thought Yamato would be the next Straw Hat? Her hair had that white and green gradient, which didn't clash with any of existing Straw Hat crew members' colors. And Loki's hair is purple, again in a unique color. It really feels like Oda Sensei wants us to have these kind of discussions. He's inviting us to speculate. To be honest, I don't think Loki is going to join the crew. At least not right now. Either way, considering the mural in Elbaf we saw with Nika and the Ancient Giants, it wouldn't be crazy to think that Loki will end up fighting alongside the Straw Hat Pirates against the world government. So yeah, this time I walked through chapter 1152 with a focus on Haki, analyzing it through the lens of the Japanese original perspective. Honestly, I still have so much more I want to say, so I'll be going into more depth over on my Patreon page. I'll also keep dropping new videos on Dawn Dusk channel, so don't miss them. And if you're interested in private Japanese lesson or translation work, feel free to hit me up on the Instagram or by email. Alright, see you in the next video.